Who was calling?
Damian, mostly. He tried to get your friend's scholarship taken away.
He is going to figure out it was you.
He already knows it was me. He left a message with my security downstairs. He said, I am playing a stupid game and I am going to lose.
He is not playing a game, Matt. He is dangerous.
Jamila opened her eyes. The heavy white curtains in the bedroom were pulled back. Bright morning sunlight filled the massive room. She blinked, confused for a second. It took her a minute to remember she was in the Plaza Hotel in New York. She sat up slowly and rubbed her face. For the first time in weeks, she had slept through the entire night. No bad dreams, no waking up sweating and shaking, just deep, heavy sleep. She looked at the clock on the nightstand. It was almost 10 in the morning. She cursed under her breath. She had lost hours of practice time. She threw off the thick blankets and stood up. Her muscles were stiff, but she felt stronger. She walked over to the door and unlocked the deadbolt. It made a loud click in the quiet room. She stepped out into the hallway. The penthouse was totally silent. She walked into the huge living room and looked around. Matt was sitting at the glass dining table. He was wearing dark jeans and a plain grey shirt. His laptop was open in front of him and he was typing fast. There was a fresh cup of coffee sitting next to his hand. He did not even look up when she walked into the room. "You sleep like a dead person," Matt said. His voice was rough and deep. "I was tired," Jamila said. She crossed her arms over her chest. "And you should have woken me up. I have to practice." Matt finally stopped typing. He closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. His dark eyes moved over her, taking in her messy hair, her oversized t-shirt and her bare feet. "You needed the rest. I told the guards downstairs to hold all your calls. Your phone has been ringing non-stop." "Who was calling?" she asked, her heart beating a little faster. "Damian, mostly," Matt said. He picked up his coffee cup and took a slow drink. "He is very mad. It turns out he tried to get the dean to take your friend's scholarship away this morning. The dean had to tell him that he does not run the school anymore." Jamila walked over to the table and pulled out a chair. She sat down across from him. "He is going to figure out it was you." "He already knows it was me," Matt smiled. It was a cold, sharp smile. "He left a message with my security downstairs. He said I am playing a stupid game and I am going to lose." "He is not playing a game, Matt. He is dangerous." "So am I." Matt put his cup down. "I ordered food. It is in the kitchen. Go eat. Then we are going back to the studio." Jamila frowned. She hated how easily he gave orders. She hated that she was actually hungry enough to listen. "I can go to the studio by myself. You do not have to watch me practice all day." "I am going with you," he said flatly. "I paid for the building. I get to sit in it." "You are just using this to annoy Damian," she snapped. "I am not a pawn on your chessboard." Matt leaned forward. He rested his elbows on the glass table. "If you were a pawn, I would have let him take you. You are the queen on this board, Jamila, and I do not let anyone touch my queen." The words hit her right in the chest. It was a heavy, possessive thing to say. She glared at him, trying to hide the fact that her hands were shaking again. "Do not call me yours. I belong to myself." "Keep telling yourself that," Matt said softly. "Now go eat your food before I come over there and feed you myself." She stood up fast, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You are an absolute jerk. And you are starving. Go." She walked into the kitchen, grinding her teeth. There were silver covers over hot plates of food on the counter, eggs, bacon, toast, and fresh fruit. It smelled amazing. She grabbed a plate and loaded it up. She ate standing at the counter, keeping her eyes on the living room. Matt went back to typing on his laptop. He looked like he was working out a major business deal, completely ignoring her. But she knew he was tracking her every move. He always was. When she finished eating, she walked back to her room and changed into fresh practice clothes. She put her dark hair up in a tight ponytail and grabbed her duffel bag. When she walked back out to the living room, Matt was already standing by the front door holding his keys. "Ready?" he asked. "I am not talking to you," she said, walking past him and out into the hallway. Matt chuckled behind her. They rode the private elevator down to the parking garage. The black car was waiting for them. The driver opened the door and they climbed inside. The rain had stopped, but the streets of New York were still wet and grey. The sky was filled with heavy clouds. It looked exactly like how she felt. The drive to Brooklyn was quiet. Matt was on his phone the whole time, texting someone. Jamila stared out the window, going over her dance routine in her head. She needed to focus. The semifinals were 2 days away. If she messed up, everything she worked for was gone. She could not let Damian or Matt distract her. The car pulled up to the brick building. The street was totally empty. Matt stepped out first and looked around the sidewalk. His eyes were sharp, scanning the parked cars and the shadows between the buildings. He nodded to the driver and then looked at Jamila. "It is clear, let's go," he said. They walked up the stairs and into the empty lobby. The desk was still cleared off. No one was there. They walked down the dark hallway to Studio 3. Jamila pushed the door open and stopped dead in her tracks. The huge mirror covering the back wall of the studio was completely shattered. Huge pieces of glass covered the wooden floor. But that was not the worst part. Written in thick, dark red paint across the remaining pieces of mirror was a message: "You cannot hide forever, Mila." Jamila dropped her bag. The sound echoed in the empty room. Her breath caught in her throat. Her hands started shaking violently. He called her Mila, the nickname from the dark room, the nickname from her past life. Matt stepped into the room behind her. He saw the broken glass and the red paint. His body went totally rigid. The lazy, arrogant smirk disappeared from his face. He looked like a killer who just found his target. "Stay here," Matt ordered. His voice was low, rough, and completely deadly. He walked fast into the room, his boots crunching loudly on the broken glass. He checked the back door. It was forced open. The metal lock was broken off. He looked out into the alley behind the building, then pulled the heavy metal door shut and locked the deadbolt. He turned around and looked at the red paint on the mirror. Jamila could not move. Her feet were glued to the floor. The smell of the red paint filled the room. It smelled like chemicals, but in her head it smelled like blood. Damian was inside the building. He had broken in while they were at the hotel. He destroyed the mirror just to send her a message. "He was here," she whispered. Her voice was shaking so bad she barely recognized it. "He got inside." Matt walked back over to her. He did not look angry at her. He looked angry at the world. He reached out and grabbed her shoulders. His grip was tight, grounding her, pulling her back to reality. "Look at me," Matt said firmly. She shook her head, keeping her eyes on the broken glass. He knows everything. He is going to ruin this. He is going to ruin me again." "I said look at me, Jamila." He gave her shoulders a small shake. She finally pulled her eyes away from the mirror and looked up at him. His dark eyes were burning. "He broke a piece of glass and used some cheap paint," Matt said. His voice was calm, but there was a dark, violent edge under it. "He is acting like a scared little boy throwing a temper tantrum. He did this because he could not get to you. He did this because he knows you are with me and it pisses him off." "He is not a little boy," she cried, pushing against his chest. "You do not know what he did to me. You do not know what he is capable of." Matt grabbed her hands and held them tight against his chest. "Then tell me, stop shutting me out. What did he do to you?" Jamila let out a broken sob. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to scream it so loud the whole city could hear her. But how could she tell him the truth? How could she tell him she died in a past life and woke up in this one? He would think she was crazy. He would lock her in a hospital. "I can't," she cried, pulling her hands free and backing away from him. "You would not believe me." "Try me," Matt said softly, taking a step toward her. "No," she shook her head and wrapped her arms around herself. "Just stay away from me. This is my fault. I brought this mess to your door. I should just leave." "You are not leaving," Matt said flatly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He pressed a button and put it to his ear. "Mateo, bring the cleanup crew to the studio in Brooklyn. Now, I want this glass gone. I want the mirror replaced. And I want 10 men standing guard around this building. Nobody gets within a block of this place without my permission." He hung up the phone and shoved it back into his pocket. He looked at Jamila. "You came here to dance, so you are going to dance." "Are you insane?" Jamila yelled, pointing at the shattered mirror. "The room is destroyed. He was just here." "And now he is gone," Matt said, closing the distance between them again. "He wants you to run away crying. He wants you to give up your practice time. Are you going to let him win? Are you going to let him take away your shot at the championship because he broke a mirror?" Jamila stared at him. Her chest heaved up and down. He was using her own anger against her. He was pushing her buttons, making her mad so she would stop being scared. And damn it was working. "I hate you," she spat. "I know," Matt smiled darkly. "Now put your shoes on, you have a solo to run." Jamila turned around and grabbed her bag. She unzipped it violently and pulled out her practice shoes. She kicked off her boots and shoved her feet into the soft shoes. She was so mad her blood felt hot. Damian thought he could scare her. Matt thought he could control her. She was going to show both of them that they were wrong. She marched over to the sound system. She plugged in her phone and cranked the volume up as high as it would go. The heavy bass filled the room, shaking the broken glass on the floor. She walked out to the center of the wooden floor. She ignored the red paint. She ignored the mess. She looked straight at Matt. He walked over to his folding chair and sat down. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, watching her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. Jamila started to dance. She did not hold anything back. She let the anger fuel every jump, every turn. She pushed her body to the absolute limit. She focused on the music, letting the beat block out everything else. For 2 hours, she worked on the routine until she could barely stand. When she finally stopped, she was drenched in sweat. Her legs were shaking and she was breathing heavily. The front door of the studio opened and 5 men in dark suits walked in. They were holding brooms, trash bags, and cleaning supplies. Matt's cleanup crew had arrived. Matt stood up from his chair. He walked over to Jamila and handed her a fresh towel from her bag. "You did good," he said quietly. She took the towel and wiped her face. She did not look at him. "I did not do it for you." "I never said you did." He reached out and tucked a loose piece of dark hair behind her ear. His fingers brushed her hot skin. "But you are going to win this thing, and when you do, Damian is going to lose his mind." "Good," she whispered, looking up at him. "I want him to suffer." Matt's dark eyes burned. "He will, I will make sure of it." The cleaners started sweeping up the broken glass. The sound was loud and grating. Matt put his hand on the small of her back. The touch sent a weird jolt straight to her stomach. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's go get some food, you earned it." Jamila did not push his hand away. She let him guide her out of the ruined studio and back down the dark hallway. She hated that she was getting used to his touch. She hated that she felt safe when he was close. She had made an ironclad vow to never love a man again, but Matt was making it very hard to keep that promise. She walked out into the cold New York air, ready to fight the next battle. She just hoped she was strong enough to win. The black car sat waiting by the curb. The engine hummed quietly. The driver held a large umbrella over the back door, keeping the heavy New York rain off the seats. Jamila walked down the wet steps of the studio and stopped. She did not want to get in the car. She did not want to sit next to Matt in a tight space. Her whole body was buzzing with leftover anger from dancing and from seeing Damian's sick message in red paint on the broken mirror. "Get in," Matt said. He was standing right behind her. He did not sound like he was asking. Jamila turned her head and glared at him. "I can take the subway. It is cheaper." Matt let out a short, mean laugh. "You are not taking the subway. Damian has people looking for you. You get in this car right now or I will pick you up and throw you inside. I do not care who sees." Jamila knew he was not lying. He was crazy enough to do it. She ground her teeth together and walked under the umbrella. She ducked her head and slid into the back seat. The leather was soft and smelled like expensive cleaning spray. Matt climbed in right after her. The driver shut the door and the loud noise of the rain was instantly cut off. Matt sat entirely too close. The back seat was huge, but he pressed his thigh right against hers. The heat from his leg burned through her thin leggings. She tried to slide over, but her hip hit the door. She was trapped. "Move over," she snapped, staring out the dark window. Matt did not move an inch. He stretched his long legs out and rested his arm on the back of the seat, right behind her neck. "I am comfortable right here." "You are doing that on purpose to annoy me," she said. "Yes," Matt agreed smoothly. "It is working." She crossed her arms tight over her chest. "Where are we going? The hotel is the other way." "We are going to eat," Matt said. He pulled his phone out of his pocket and started typing with one hand. "You burned a lot of calories dancing like a crazy person. You need meat. Real food, not another sad sandwich from my fridge." "I am fine, I am not hungry." Right as she said the words, her stomach let out a loud, angry growl. The sound was impossible to hide in the quiet car. Matt stopped typing. He looked at her and smiled. It was a slow, arrogant smile that made him look like a dark, handsome devil. "Right, you are not hungry at all." "Shut up," she muttered, turning her face back to the window so he would not see her blushing. The car drove through the wet streets for 20 minutes. The city lights blurred against the rainy glass. They pulled up to a fancy steakhouse. There were no lights on inside. The big sign above the door was turned off. The driver put the car in park and turned around to look at Matt. The owner said he left everything ready on the back table, sir, the driver said quietly. Good, Matt replied. He grabbed his keys. Wait here. Jamila looked at the dark building. The restaurant is closed, Matt. We cannot go in there. It is closed to the public, Matt corrected her. He pushed his door open and stepped out into the rain. He walked around to her side and opened her door. I paid the owner to cook a meal, leave it on the table and send all his staff home. We have the whole place to ourselves. Jamila just stared at him. The rain hit her face, but she did not care. You paid a restaurant to shut down just so we could eat. Damian is looking for you, Matt said simply. I am not taking you into a crowded room where anyone could take a picture of you or put something in your drink. Now get out of the car. I am getting wet. She climbed out of the car. Matt put his large hand on her lower back and guided her to the front door. He used a silver key to unlock it. The inside of the restaurant was completely dark, except for one single table in the very back corner. A small lamp was turned on above it. The table was covered in plates of hot food, thick cuts of steak, roasted potatoes, and fresh bread. Matt locked the heavy glass door behind them. The quiet inside the huge room was heavy. It felt like they were the only two people left in the entire world. Jamila walked slowly toward the lit table. Her mouth watered at the smell of the hot meat. Sit, Matt told her. He pulled out a dark wooden chair for her. She sat down. Matt pushed the chair in and then walked around to sit right across from her. He took off his black jacket and threw it on the empty seat next to him. His dark shirt hugged the thick muscles of his chest. He picked up a heavy silver knife and a fork. He pulled the largest plate of steak toward himself and started cutting the meat into small pieces. I can cut my own food, Jamila said, reaching for the plate. Matt moved the plate out of her reach. He did not even look up. I know you can, but your hands are tired from practicing. Sit back and let me do it. I am not a child, Matt. He finished cutting the meat and pushed the plate directly in front of her. He put the silver fork down on a napkin. He finally looked up and met her eyes. His stare was so intense it made her breath catch. I know exactly what you are, Jamila. You are a woman who thinks she has to do everything by herself to survive. Eat the damn food. She hated that he read her so easily. In her past life she had trusted people and it got her killed. She had let Damian control her and she lost everything. Now she kept her walls so high nobody could climb them, but Matt was not trying to climb her walls. He was just taking a hammer and smashing right through them. She picked up the fork and stabbed a piece of steak. She put it in her mouth. The flavor was incredible. It was the best thing she had eaten in days. She closed her eyes for a second and let out a soft sigh. When she opened her eyes, Matt was watching her. He had not touched his own food. He was just resting his chin on his hand, tracking every tiny movement of her face. Is it good? He asked. His voice was low and rough. It is fine, she lied. She took another bite. Matt let out a dark laugh. You are such a bad liar, it is almost cute. I am not cute, she shot back, pointing her fork at him. I am going to win the global championship and crush Damian's ego into dust. Cute girls do not do that. You are right, Matt agreed slowly. He leaned forward across the table. He was so close she could see the tiny gold specks in his dark eyes. You are not cute. You are dangerous. You walk around with a giant chip on your shoulder and fire in your eyes. You look at Damian like you want to cut his throat open. Jamila stopped chewing, her heart hammered in her chest. She put the fork down carefully. He deserves worse than that. Tell me what he did to you, Matt whispered. The teasing tone was completely gone from his voice. He looked deadly serious. Tell me why you freeze up every time he says your name. Tell me why you looked at that broken mirror today like you saw a ghost. Jamila looked down at the table. Her hands started to shake. The memory of the freezing room filled her head, the sound of Damian laughing while she begged for help, the feeling of her life slipping away while he watched. She could not tell Matt that. It sounded completely insane. He hurt me, she said quietly. It was the closest to the truth she had ever given anyone. He took away my choices, he trapped me, and I swore to myself that I would never, ever let a man control my life again. Matt did not say anything for a long minute. The silence in the dark restaurant was thick. Jamila refused to look up. She felt a tear burn the corner of her eye, but she blinked it away fast. She would not cry in front of him. Matt reached across the table. His large hand covered both of hers. His skin was so warm. He wrapped his long fingers around her shaking hands and squeezed tight. Damian is a dead man, Matt said. His voice was completely flat. It was not a threat. It was a promise. I am going to tear his life apart piece by piece. He will never get within 10 feet of you again. Jamila finally looked up at him. You cannot just kill people, Matt. Watch me, he said. His eyes were black and empty. Nobody touches what is mine. I am not yours, she said immediately. She tried to pull her hands away, but he held on. I told you I do not want to be owned, not by him and not by you. You are just trying to replace his cage with a nicer one. Matt's jaw tightened. A muscle ticked in his cheek. He let go of her hands and leaned back in his chair. You think I want to put you in a cage? You think I want to lock you up? Don't you? She challenged him. You bought my dance studio. You bought my best friend's academy. You rented out this entire restaurant and put guards outside. You are controlling every step I take. I am keeping you alive, Matt shot back, his voice raising just a little. Because you are too stubborn to ask for help. Damian left a threat painted in blood red on a broken mirror, and your first thought was to just dance in the middle of it. You are going to get yourself killed just to prove a point. It is my point to prove, Jamila yelled back. She slammed her hand flat on the table. The plates rattled. It is my life. If I die fighting him, then at least I die fighting on my own terms. I will not be a weak little girl hiding behind a rich guy. Matt stared at her. His chest moved up and down with heavy breaths. He looked like he wanted to flip the table over, but he just took a deep breath and ran a hand through his dark hair. You are going to drive me crazy, he muttered. Then leave me alone, she said. She crossed her arms. Go back to Paris. Let me deal with Damian myself. No, Matt picked up his fork and finally started eating his own food. I am not going anywhere. I am going to sit right here, and I am going to watch you win this championship. And when you realize that letting me protect you does not make you weak, I will be waiting. Jamila did not say anything else. She went back to eating her steak. The food still tasted good, but the knot in her stomach was back. Matt was playing a very long game. He was not trying to force her into a cage. He was trying to make her walk into it willingly. And that was the most dangerous trap of all. They finished their meal in silence. Matt paid the bill by leaving a huge stack of $100 bills on the table. He put his jacket back on and opened the front door for her. The rain had turned into an icy sleet. The wind whipped down the street, stinging Jamila's face. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering violently. Before she could take another step, Matt pulled off his heavy jacket and dropped it over her shoulders. The coat was massive on her. It swallowed her up, smelling like him and trapping his body heat around her cold skin. I do not need this, she said, trying to shrug it off. Matt grabbed the edges of the jacket and pulled it tight around her chest, forcing her to keep it on. His knuckles brushed against her collarbone. Just say thank you and get in the car, Jamila. She glared at him but pulled the coat tighter around herself. It was too warm to give back. They walked to the car and climbed inside. The driver immediately took off, heading back toward the Plaza Hotel. The sleet hit the car windows with sharp, angry ticks. Jamila felt her eyes getting heavy again. The heavy food and the warm coat were making her sleepy. She leaned her head back against the leather seat and tried to stay awake. She needed to go over her routine. She needed to plan for tomorrow, but her body was completely done. She drifted off to sleep to the sound of the sleet hitting the glass. When she woke up, the car was parked in the underground garage of the hotel. The engine was off. The driver was gone. Jamila blinked, confused. She looked to her left. Matt was sitting right next to her in the dark. He was not looking at his phone. He was just sitting there, watching her sleep. How long have we been sitting here? She asked, her voice raspy. 20 minutes, Matt said quietly. Why didn't you wake me up? You looked peaceful, he replied. He did not move away. In the dark car, his eyes looked like black glass. You do not look peaceful very often. Jamila felt a sudden, sharp spike of heat in her stomach. He was too close. The car was too quiet. I am awake now, she said, grabbing the door handle. Let's go. She opened the door and stepped out into the cold garage. Matt got out on the other side. They walked to the private elevator together. Jamila handed him his jacket. He took it and slung it over his shoulder. The elevator doors closed and the metal box shot up toward the penthouse. Jamila kept her eyes on the digital numbers changing above the door. She could feel Matt's presence pulling at her. It was like a magnet. She wanted to lean against his chest. She wanted to close her eyes and let him deal with the rest of the world. But the vow she made in her past life burned in the back of her mind. Never rely on a man. Never let them control you. The doors opened. They stepped into the penthouse. The lights were low, making the huge living room look full of dark shadows. Jamila walked straight toward the hallway leading to her bedroom. "I am going to sleep. Good night." "Wait." Matt's voice stopped her. She turned around. He dropped his jacket on the couch and walked toward her. He did not stop until he was standing right in front of her. The heat from his body washed over her. "What?" she asked, keeping her voice hard. Matt reached out and grabbed her wrist. His grip was loose but firm. He pulled her gently toward him. Jamila tried to step back, but her back hit the hard wall of the hallway. She was trapped between the wall and his heavy chest. "You are fighting too hard," Matt whispered. He placed his other hand flat against the wall, right beside her head. He leaned down until his lips were inches from her ear. "You fight Damian, you fight me. You fight yourself, you need to stop." "I cannot stop," she breathed out. Her heart was beating so fast she felt dizzy. "If I stop, I lose." "If you stop fighting me, you win," Matt murmured. He slowly turned his head until his lips were hovering right over hers. He did not kiss her. He just stayed there, letting his breath mix with hers. "I am not Damian. I do not want to break you. I want to build a wall around you so high that nobody can ever hurt you again." "I will just climb over it," Jamila whispered, staring at his mouth. She hated how much she wanted him to close the distance. Matt smiled. It was a dark, wicked smile. "I know you will, and I will be right there waiting to catch you on the other side." He leaned in closer. Jamila closed her eyes, her mind completely short-circuiting. But instead of kissing her lips, Matt turned his head and pressed a hot, firm kiss against her cheek. He let his lips linger there for a long second, burning her skin. Then he pulled back. He dropped her wrist and took a step away. The sudden loss of contact left her feeling totally empty. "Go to sleep, dancer," Matt said, his voice rough. "Tomorrow you practice, and in 2 days you take the stage. I will handle the rest." He turned his back on her and walked toward his own bedroom on the other side of the massive penthouse. Jamila stood frozen against the wall. Her cheek was still burning from his kiss. Her heart was racing like she had just run a marathon. She turned and walked into her bedroom, locking the door behind her. She slid down the wood of the door until she was sitting on the floor in the dark. She put her head in her hands. Damian was a monster who wanted to destroy her. That was a simple problem. She knew how to fight a monster. But Matt was a fire that wanted to burn down all her defenses and keep her warm, and she had no idea how to fight that. She pulled her knees to her chest in the quiet room. She had 2 days until the semifinals, 2 days to figure out how to survive the past catching up to her and the dangerous boy waiting right outside her door. Morning came too fast. The alarm on Jamila's phone buzzed loudly on the nightstand, pulling her out of a deep sleep. She reached out from under the heavy white blankets and hit the screen to make the noise stop. She laid there for a minute, staring at the high ceiling of the hotel room. The semifinals were exactly 24 hours away. Tomorrow she would step onto the biggest stage of her life. Tomorrow she would prove that she deserved to be here. She pushed the covers off and swung her legs over the edge of the bed. Her muscles were tight from the brutal practice yesterday, but they did not hurt as much as she expected. Sleeping in a bed that cost more than her family's old apartment really made a difference. She walked into the massive bathroom, splashed cold water on her face and tied her dark hair back. She pulled on a clean pair of black leggings and a grey sweatshirt. She did not bother looking in the mirror. She knew she looked tired. She always looked tired these days. When she opened the bedroom door and walked down the long hallway, she smelled fresh coffee and hot food. The penthouse living room was bright. The heavy rain from yesterday was gone, replaced by a cold, pale New York sun shining through the giant glass windows. Matt was sitting on the white leather couch. He had his phone to his ear. He was wearing dark jeans and a tight black sweater that hugged his broad shoulders. He looked up when she walked into the room, but he did not stop talking. He was speaking Korean. His voice was low, fast, and completely hard. He did not sound like the lazy, arrogant guy who teased her. He sounded like a man giving orders that could ruin someone's life. He locked his dark eyes on her as she walked into the kitchen. He finished his sentence, listened for a second, and then hung up the phone. He tossed it onto the glass coffee table. "Good morning," Matt said. His voice echoed slightly in the huge, empty room. "Morning," Jamila muttered. She walked over to the kitchen counter. There was a plate of eggs and toast sitting next to a steaming mug of coffee. She knew Matt ordered it for her. She hated that he knew exactly what she needed before she even asked. She took a sip of the coffee. It was strong and black, just the way she liked it. "Who were you yelling at?" Matt leaned back on the couch and spread his arms across the top of the white leather. I was not yelling. I never yell. You sounded like you were about to fire someone or kill them. Damian tried to buy the judges for tomorrow's competition, Matt said calmly. Jamila almost dropped her coffee mug. She gripped the edge of the marble counter. Her heart started beating so fast she felt it in her throat. What did he do it? Did he pay them off? He tried, Matt corrected her. He stood up from the couch and walked slowly into the kitchen. He stopped on the other side of the counter, leaning forward to look at her. He offered the head judge a very nice sum of money to make sure you score the lowest points possible. He wanted you disqualified before you even made it to the finals. Jamila felt sick. The toast on her plate suddenly looked like cardboard. Damian was attacking her from every side. He could not get to her physically, so he was trying to rip the ground right out from under her feet. All her practice, all the pain she pushed through, it would not mean a damn thing if the judges were already paid to fail her. I am going to lose, she whispered, staring blindly at her coffee. I am going to step on that stage and they are going to cut me. I will lose my scholarship. Look at me, Matt said. His voice was sharp. It cut right through her panic. She lifted her head. You are not going to lose, Matt told her. His dark eyes were burning with that familiar, intense fire. I told you I handle the rest. Damian tried to buy the judges, so I bought their bosses. My father's company just became the primary sponsor for the entire global dance championship. I own the broadcast rights. I own the stage you are going to dance on. Jamila's mouth fell open. She could not wrap her head around the kind of money he was talking about. You cannot just buy a global competition. I just did, Matt said, a slow, arrogant smirk returning to his face. I had my people call the head judge 10 minutes ago. I let him know that if he takes a single dollar from Damian, or if he judges you unfairly, he will never work in television or dance again. I will bury him so deep he will not be able to find daylight. This is insane, she breathed out, rubbing her temples. You are just trading his dirty money for your dirty money. I want to win because I am the best dancer, not because some rich guy is threatening the judges for me. Matt walked around the counter. He stopped right next to her. He was so close she could feel the heat radiating off his chest. You are the best dancer, Jamila. You are going to win because nobody works harder than you. All I did was clear the board. Damian wanted to cheat. I just made sure the game stays fair. Now the only thing you have to worry about is hitting your steps. She looked up at him. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to yell at him for taking away her control. But a massive wave of relief washed over her. He had stopped Damian again. He had guarded her back without even asking for a thank you. You spend too much money, she muttered, looking away. Matt let out a low, rich laugh. He reached out and tapped the side of her coffee mug. Drink your coffee, eat your food. The car is waiting downstairs. We have a studio to get to. An hour later, they pulled up to the brick building in Brooklyn. The street was lined with black SUVs. Tall men in dark suits stood at the corners of the block, watching every car that passed. Matt was not joking when he said he wanted 10 guards around the building. It looked like a military zone. Jamila walked up the stairs, ignoring the men in suits. Matt followed right behind her, his hands tucked into the pockets of his dark winter coat. They walked into Studio 3. The room looked completely different from yesterday. The broken glass was gone. The red paint was gone. A brand new mirror covered the entire back wall, shining and perfect. It was like Damian had never even been there. Get to work, Matt said. He walked over to his folding chair in the center of the room, sat down, and pulled his phone out of his pocket. Jamila dropped her bag, pulled off her sweatshirt, and walked to the sound system. She plugged her phone in and let the music fill the room. She stepped onto the clean wooden floor and closed her eyes. She let the beat wash over her. She pushed the thoughts of Damian, the judges, and the money out of her head. She just focused on the steps. She danced for 3 hours straight. She ran the semi-final routine until every turn, every leap, and every fall was locked into her muscle memory. Her chest heaved and her dark skin shined with sweat. The room was hot, but she did not care. She felt powerful. She felt alive. She finished the final pose of her routine, dropping to the floor and letting her head hang between her knees. She sucked in deep, burning breaths of air. The door to the studio clicked open. Jamila snapped her head up. A tall guard in a black suit stepped into the room. He did not look at her. He walked straight over to Matt, who was sitting in his chair. The guard was holding a small, plain brown box in his hands. Matt looked up from his phone. His dark eyes locked onto the box and his whole body went stiff. He stood up slowly. "What is that?" "A courier dropped it off at the front door, sir," the guard said, keeping his voice low. "He said it was for the dancer. He took off running before we could grab him." Jamila felt the familiar, icy grip of panic grab her chest. She stood up from the floor, her legs shaking slightly. "What is it?" she asked, her voice echoing in the quiet room. "Stay back," Matt ordered her without looking away from the box. He stepped closer to the guard. "Did security scan it?" "Yes, sir, no explosives. It is safe to open." "Give it to me," Matt said. He snatched the box from the guard's hands. "Get out and tell the men outside to secure the perimeter. Nobody gets in." The guard nodded and left the room quickly, pulling the heavy door shut behind him. Matt held the small brown box in his hands. He looked at it like it was a poisonous snake. He did not open it right away. He turned his head and looked at Jamila. "Do not open it," Jamila said. Her voice was shaking. She backed up a step. "Just throw it away, Matt, please." "If he sent a message, we need to know what it is," Matt said. His voice was completely flat. He ripped the brown tape off the top of the box and pulled the cardboard flaps open. He looked inside. His jaw tightened so hard a muscle jumped in his cheek. He did not say a word. He just stared into the box, his dark eyes turning completely black with rage. "What is it?" Jamila asked. She took a slow step forward. She could not stop herself. She had to know. Matt closed the box quickly. "It is nothing, it is garbage." "Show me," she demanded, walking faster. She reached him and grabbed the edge of the box. Matt tried to pull it away, but she yanked it down, forcing the flaps open. She looked inside, and the breath was knocked right out of her lungs. Sitting in the bottom of the box was a pair of pink ballet slippers. They were covered in dark, dried blood, real blood, and sitting on top of the shoes was a small Polaroid picture. It was a picture of Jamila's mother, walking into her small apartment building back in Paris. A red target was drawn with a marker right over her mother's chest. Jamila's legs gave out. She stumbled backward, letting go of the box. She hit the wooden floor hard, her hands flying up to cover her mouth. A ragged, broken sound tore out of her throat. Damian was not just going after Chloe. He was going after her mother. He had people watching her family. He was going to kill them. He was going to kill everyone she loved if she did not stop dancing. "Mila," Matt said, dropping the box on the floor. He rushed over and dropped to his knees right in front of her. "Jamila, look at me." She could not look at him. She was staring at the box on the floor, the bloody shoes, the picture of her mother. The walls of the studio felt like they were closing in. The air was getting too thin to breathe. She was back in the cold room. Damian had won. He always won. "I have to quit," she cried, rocking back and forth on the floor. Tears spilled down her cheeks, hot and fast. "I have to call him. I have to drop out of the competition. He's going to kill her, Matt. He's going to hurt my mother." Matt grabbed her face with both of his large hands. He forced her to stop rocking. He forced her to look right into his dark, burning eyes. "He is not going to touch your mother," Matt said. His voice was a low, brutal growl. It was not a comforting voice. It was the voice of a man preparing for war. "My people are in Paris. I have guards at your mother's building. I have guards at your little sister's school. Damian's men cannot get within a mile of your family without getting a bullet in the head." Jamila shook her head, tears blurring her vision. "You do not know him. He always finds a way. I have to give him what he wants." "You are not giving him a damn thing," Matt yelled. His voice bounced off the mirrored walls, harsh and commanding. He pulled her face closer to his. "You are going to breathe, Jamila. Do you hear me? Breathe." She took a shaky, gasping breath. "Good," Matt whispered, his thumbs wiping the tears off her dark skin. He did not let her look away. "He sent this box because he is losing. He cannot touch your friends and he cannot buy the judges. This is a cheap trick to make you panic. It is a scare tactic, and you are not going to let it work." "I am so tired of being scared," she sobbed, her hands gripping his strong wrists. "I am so tired of fighting him." "Then let me fight him," Matt said. His voice dropped to a soft, dangerous whisper. He leaned his forehead against hers. She could feel his hot breath on her lips. "Stop pushing me away. Let me be your shield. You step on that stage tomorrow and you dance. You let me handle the monster in the dark." Jamila closed her eyes. She was shaking all over. She was so close to giving up. But the heat of Matt's hands on her face, the solid strength of his chest right in front of her, it pulled her back from the edge. He was offering her exactly what she swore she would never take. He was offering to own her battles. "If I let you do this," she whispered, her voice breaking, "what do you want from me when it is over?" Matt pulled his head back just enough to look into her eyes. He did not smile, he did not look arrogant, he looked completely, violently obsessed. "I want everything," Matt said simply. "I want your trust, I want your time, I want you to look at me the way you look at the stage. I want you, Jamila, completely." It was a heavy, terrifying demand. It was a trade of her freedom for her safety. She looked at the bloody shoes in the box, and then she looked back at Matt, the arrogant Korean heir who bought buildings and threatened billionaires just to make sure she could dance. She took a deep breath. She let go of his wrists and slid her hands up to rest flat against his hard chest. "Keep my mother safe," Jamila whispered, "and I will give you everything you want." Matt's eyes flared with dark fire. He did not hesitate. He leaned in and crushed his mouth against hers. It was a hard, punishing kiss full of heat and possession. Jamila gasped, but she did not pull away. She kissed him back, letting the fire consume the fear. The deal was made. The war was on. The bright lights of the stage hit Jamila's face like a physical wave. The crowd sitting in the massive dark theater roared as she walked to the center mark. The floor was perfectly polished, squeaking slightly under her soft shoes. She stood totally still, her chin lifted high. The judges were sitting at a long table in the front row. The head judge, an older man with grey hair, looked down at his papers and then back up at her. He gave a tiny, almost invisible nod. Matt had done his job. The game was fair. The music started. It was a slow, heavy piano beat that built into a massive, crashing drum sound. Jamila closed her eyes for a split second, letting the music sink into her bones. Then she exploded into movement. She leaped across the stage, throwing her body into the air with violent grace. Every turn was perfectly balanced. Every landing was completely silent. She did not dance to win a trophy. She danced to burn away the memories of the freezing room. She danced to celebrate the fact that her mother was safe in London. She danced because for the first time in 2 lives, she was completely free. She spun so fast the bright lights blurred into a solid white line. She poured all her anger, all her joy, and all her fire into the routine. When the final, heavy drumbeat hit, she dropped to one knee, her chest heaving, her arm reaching out toward the dark crowd. The music stopped. For 1 second, the entire theater was totally silent. Then the crowd exploded. People jumped to their feet, screaming and clapping. The sound was deafening. Jamila stayed on the floor, breathing hard, looking out into the dark. She did not care about the judges writing down perfect scores. She did not care about the cameras zooming in on her sweating face. She only cared about the tall figure standing in the shadows by the side curtain. Matt was leaning against the brick wall. He had his arms crossed over his chest. Even from far away, she could see the arrogant, possessive smirk on his face. He nodded his head slowly. She had done it. Jamila stood up, bowed to the judges, and walked off the stage. The stage manager patted her on the back as she passed, yelling about how incredible she was, but she ignored him. She walked straight to Matt. He pushed off the wall and met her halfway. He did not say a word. He just grabbed her waist, pulled her into his hard chest, and buried his face in her neck. He smelled like expensive cologne and dangerous promises. "You owned the whole room," Matt murmured against her skin. "They could not look away from you." "I told you I was going to win," she said, wrapping her arms around his neck. Her body was exhausted, but she felt like she was floating. "Damian is gone. The routine was perfect." Matt pulled back just enough to look at her. His dark eyes were burning with that heavy obsession she was finally getting used to. "The finals are tomorrow night. You get your trophy and then we get on a plane to Paris. You are moving into my place. We had a deal." Jamila smiled. She reached up and touched his sharp jawline. "I know I am not running away, Matt." "Good," he whispered, pressing a hard kiss to her lips. "Because I would just track you down anyway. Let's go. You need to ice your legs before they lock up." He wrapped his arm tightly around her shoulders and led her through the chaotic backstage area. The other dancers whispered and pointed as they walked by, intimidated by the giant, angry-looking guy guarding her. Jamila did not care. She liked having him there. She liked the heavy weight of his arm. They walked out the back doors of the theater into the cold New York air. The black car was waiting by the curb. The driver opened the door and they climbed inside. Matt immediately pulled her against his side, resting his chin on the top of her head. The car started moving through the busy city traffic. "I have a meeting with the venue owners in an hour," Matt said, looking at his phone. "I need to finalize the broadcast contracts for the finals tomorrow. I am dropping you at the hotel. My guards are outside the door. Do not leave the penthouse. I am too tired to go anywhere, Jamila muttered, closing her eyes. I am just going to sleep. Good girl, he kissed the top of her head. They reached the Plaza Hotel. Matt walked her up to the penthouse, unlocked the door, and made sure she was inside before leaving for his meeting. The huge apartment was totally quiet. Jamila dropped her bag on the white couch and walked into the kitchen to grab a bottle of water. She felt amazing. She felt light. The terror that had followed her since she reincarnated was finally gone. She walked into her bedroom and stripped off her sweaty dance clothes. She pulled on a clean pair of loose grey sweatpants and a giant white t-shirt she found in Matt's closet. She walked into the bathroom to wash her face. She turned on the cold water and leaned over the marble sink. That was when her phone buzzed in the bedroom. Jamila stopped washing her face. The sound was loud in the quiet penthouse. She grabbed a white towel, dried her hands, and walked back into the bedroom. The phone was lying on the bed, vibrating across the sheets. She picked it up and looked at the screen. It was a text message from an unknown number. Did you really think it was over, Mila? Matt is a smart guy, but he cannot be everywhere at once. Jamila felt all the blood drain out of her face. The phone almost slipped out of her hand. Damian, it was Damian. Before she could process the message, another text popped up on the screen. Look out the window. Jamila's breath stopped. She slowly turned her head and looked at the massive glass windows that covered the far wall of the bedroom. The city lights glowed brightly outside. She did not see anything, just empty sky. Look closer. She walked slowly toward the glass. Her bare feet made no sound on the soft carpet. She pressed her hand against the cold window and looked down at the street, 50 stories below. The street was crowded with tiny cars and people. She could not see anything important. She felt a strange draft of cold air hit the back of her neck. Jamila spun around quickly. Standing right in the middle of her bedroom, holding a silver master keycard, was Damian. He was not wearing his expensive blue suit anymore. He was wearing black jeans and a dark hoodie. His blonde hair was wet from the rain outside. He looked completely insane. His pale eyes were wide and frantic. How did you get in here? Jamila yelled, backing up until her spine hit the glass window. Matt has guards outside. Matt has guards sitting by the front door, Damian smiled. It was a sick, twisted look. He took a slow step toward her. He forgot to put guards on the service elevators. Rich boys always forget about the service elevators. They think money is magic, but money cannot stop me from getting to you. Get out, she screamed, looking around for something to use as a weapon. There was nothing, just soft pillows and a heavy wooden nightstand. Matt will kill you. Matt is not here, Damian said calmly. He pulled a long black hunting knife out of his hoodie pocket. The metal blade caught the light from the window. He took my family's power. He took my pride. He humiliated me in front of everyone, so I am going to take you. Jamila's heart slammed violently against her ribs. She was trapped. She had let her guard down because she thought Matt had fixed everything. But Damian was not playing by the rules of money anymore. He was acting on pure, desperate rage. You are sick, she breathed out, keeping her eyes on the knife. I am taking back what belongs to me, Damian spat. He lunged forward. Jamila moved fast. She threw herself to the right, dodging his arm. The blade sliced through the air right where her chest had been a second ago. She scrambled across the bed, kicking the heavy white blankets into his legs to trip him. Damian stumbled, cursing loudly. Jamila ran for the bedroom door. She grabbed the handle, but before she could turn it, a heavy hand grabbed the back of her shirt and yanked her backward. She hit the floor hard, her shoulders slamming into the wood. Pain shot up her arm. Damian stood over her. He kicked the door shut and locked the deadbolt. He looked down at her, panting heavily. You belong in a dark room, Mila, he whispered, pointing the knife down at her. You belong on the floor, begging me, not dancing on a stage, not kissing some Korean bastard who thinks he can buy the world. Jamila pushed herself backward, sliding across the floor until her back hit the foot of the bed. She looked at his pale, crazy eyes. He remembered the past life perfectly. He wanted to drag her right back to that freezing room. He wanted to watch her die all over again. But she was not the same girl from the past timeline. She was stronger, and she was extremely angry. I will never beg you again, Jamila hissed. She grabbed a heavy glass perfume bottle sitting on the bottom shelf of the nightstand. She gripped it tight in her fist. Damian laughed and stepped closer. We will see about that. He raised the knife, stepping into striking range. Jamila braced herself, gripping the glass bottle, ready to smash it right into his face. Suddenly, a massive, deafening crash echoed through the penthouse. Damian stopped, looking toward the bedroom door. The heavy wooden door of the bedroom exploded inward. Wood splinters flew across the room like bullets. The door was literally kicked off its hinges. It slammed onto the floor with a sound like a bomb going off. Matt walked through the ruined doorway. He was not wearing his suit jacket anymore. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar. He looked like pure, terrifying violence. His dark eyes were fixed on Damian. The arrogant smirk was completely gone. In its place was a look of complete, absolute murder. Damian took a step back, holding the knife up. "How are you here? You are supposed to be at a meeting." "I sent a decoy," Matt said. His voice was lower than Jamila had ever heard it. It was completely calm, which made it 10 times more frightening. "I knew you were stupid, Damian, but I did not think you were stupid enough to walk into my house." Matt took a slow step into the room. He did not look at the knife. He did not care about the knife. He looked at Damian like he was a bug on the bottom of his shoe. "She is mine," Damian yelled, waving the knife toward Jamila. "She was mine in the last life, and she is mine in this one. You cannot have her." "You talk too much," Matt said simply. He moved faster than a human should be able to move. He did not flinch when Damian swung the knife. Matt reached out and grabbed Damian's wrist with one hand. He twisted it violently. A loud, sharp crack filled the room. Damian screamed, dropping the knife on the floor. Matt did not stop. He grabbed Damian by the throat with his other hand, lifting the billionaire heir entirely off the floor. Damian choked and kicked his legs, clawing desperately at Matt's thick arm. Matt slammed Damian against the far wall with enough force to crack the plaster. "I told you," Matt whispered, leaning in so close their faces were almost touching. "Nobody touches what is mine. You do not belong in this timeline, Damian. You belong in the dirt." Matt threw a brutal, heavy punch right into Damian's stomach. Damian let out a sick, gasping noise and went totally limp. Matt dropped him. Damian crumpled to the floor, coughing up blood, unable to move or speak. Matt looked down at the bleeding boy for a long second, then he turned around. He walked over to Jamila, who was still sitting on the floor against the bed. The terrifying, violent look vanished from his face the second he looked at her. He dropped to his knees right in front of her. He reached out and gently grabbed her face with both hands, his thumbs running over her cheeks. "Are you hurt?" Matt asked, his voice rough and tight with panic. "Did he touch you?" "No," Jamila breathed out. She let go of the glass bottle. It rolled away on the floor. She grabbed Matt's wrists, holding on to him like he was the only solid thing in the room. "I am okay. You came back." "I never left," Matt murmured, pulling her forward until her forehead rested against his chest. He wrapped his massive arms around her, burying her in his warmth. "I knew he would try something stupid. I wanted to catch him doing it." Jamila closed her eyes, listening to his strong heartbeat. "What are you going to do with him?" Matt looked over her head at Damian, who was still groaning on the floor. "I am going to have my men lock him in a very dark, very cold room," Matt said softly, "and he is never going to see the sun again." Jamila pulled back and looked at Matt's face. He meant every word. He was going to give Damian the exact same fate Damian had given her in the past life. It was completely brutal. It was completely dark. And she loved it. "Good," she whispered. Matt smiled. It was that dark, arrogant smile she was entirely obsessed with. He stood up and pulled her to her feet easily. He wrapped his arm tightly around her waist, pulling her against his side. "Get your shoes on. The cleaners will handle the garbage on the floor. We are going out for dinner." Jamila leaned into his chest, letting the heavy, dangerous protection of the Korean Heir completely surround her. Damian was finished. The past timeline was officially dead. She had a global championship to win tomorrow, and a very bossy, very dangerous billionaire to deal with for the rest of her life. She looked up at Matt's handsome face and smirked. She was exactly where she belonged. The morning sun hit the massive windows of the penthouse, filling the room with bright, cold light. Jamila woke up slowly. The bed was incredibly soft, much softer than the one in her old apartment. She rolled over and felt a heavy, thick arm wrapped tight around her waist. She froze for a second. Then the memories of last night rushed back into her brain. Damian breaking in, the knife, Matt kicking the heavy wooden door completely off its hinges and beating Damian until he spit blood on the floor. She turned her head on the white pillow. Matt was lying next to her, fast asleep. His bare chest was covered in dark ink tattoos. He looked peaceful, but his grip on her was like an iron trap. She tried to slide out from under his arm to go to the bathroom. "Do not move," Matt muttered. His voice was thick and rough with sleep. He did not even open his eyes. He just pulled her closer until her back was pressed flat against his hard chest. "I have to get up," Jamila said, pushing lightly at his thick forearm. "Today is the final round. I need to stretch my legs, they are tight." "You have 3 hours before we have to leave," Matt said, burying his face in her dark hair. He took a deep breath, pulling in her scent. "Stay still. I am tired of chasing you around this damn city." "You beat up a billionaire last night," she said, letting out a small laugh. She relaxed back against him, giving up the fight. "You should be tired." Matt finally opened his dark eyes. They were sharp, even in the early morning light. He lifted his head and looked down at her face. "He is lucky he is still breathing. If he had put a single scratch on you, I would have thrown him out the window, 50 stories down." "Is he locked up?" she asked softly, searching his face. "He is gone. You never have to think about him again," Matt promised. He sat up, the blankets falling off his chest to show the scars on his ribs. "I will make coffee. You go put your dance gear on. You are taking home a giant piece of metal today." 2 hours later, the black car pulled up to the back doors of the massive theater. The New York winter air was freezing, but Jamila barely felt it. Her blood was pumping too fast. The street was packed with people, news vans, and flashing cameras. Matt's driver pushed the heavy car right through the crowd and parked on the sidewalk. Matt sat next to her in the back seat, his large hand resting on her knee. His thumb rubbed slow, heavy circles into her skin. It was totally distracting. "Stay close to me," Matt said as the driver opened the door. 10 men in black suits were waiting outside. They formed a tight, solid circle around Matt and Jamila as they walked out of the car and into the building. The flashing lights from the cameras blinded her, and people yelled her name, but Matt kept his arm wrapped tight around her waist. He did not let anyone get within 5 feet of her. Backstage was a complete madhouse. Dancers were running around, stretching on the floor, putting on heavy stage makeup, and crying from the stress of the finals. When Jamila walked down the hallway with Matt and his giant guards, everyone went completely quiet. The other dancers stopped what they were doing and just stared. Matt looked like a ruthless mob boss, wearing a sharp black suit and a completely furious expression. "Tell your goons to wait outside the dressing room," Jamila whispered, feeling her face get hot. "Everyone is looking at us." "Let them look," Matt said, steering her into a private room and shutting the door. "They need to know who you belong to. It will mess with their heads. They will be too scared to dance right." "You are an evil bastard," she said, dropping her duffel bag on the floor. "I am a winner," Matt corrected her smoothly. He leaned against the closed door and crossed his arms. "And so are you, go stretch. I am not leaving this room until they call your name." She rolled her eyes, but she could not hide her smile. She pulled off her jacket and started her warm-up. For the next hour, Matt did not say a word. He just watched her. He tracked every bend of her back and every stretch of her legs. His dark eyes felt heavy on her skin, but it did not make her nervous. It made her feel completely untouchable. A woman with a headset knocked on the door and stuck her head inside. "Jamila, you are up next, 2 minutes." Jamila stood up and shook out her arms. Her heart was beating so loud she could hear it in her ears. She walked toward the door, but Matt reached out and grabbed her wrist. He pulled her flush against his chest. "Look at me," he commanded. She looked up into his face. "You do not dance for them," Matt said softly, his voice dropping into a dark, rough register. "You do not dance for the judges or the cameras. You dance for yourself. You go out there and you burn the whole damn stage down. Do you understand me?" "I understand," she whispered. He leaned down and kissed her hard. It was not a sweet, good-luck kiss. It was deep, rough, and demanding. He bit her bottom lip slightly before pulling away. "Go win." She walked out of the dressing room and down the dark tunnel leading to the stage. The stage manager pointed to the center mark. Jamila walked out into the blinding lights. The crowd sitting in the massive theater roared so loud the floor shook. She stood totally still, her chin lifted high. The judges were sitting at a long table in the front row. The head judge looked up at her and gave a tiny, respectful nod. Matt had kept his promise. The game was fair. The music started. It was a slow, heavy hip-hop beat mixed with sharp, fast violin sounds. It was a weird mix, but it fit her perfectly. Jamila closed her eyes for a split second, letting the bass sink into her bones. Then she exploded into movement. She leaped across the stage, throwing her body into the air with violent grace. Every turn was perfectly balanced. Every landing was completely silent. She did not dance to win a scholarship anymore. She danced to burn away the memories of the freezing room. She danced to celebrate the fact that her mother was safe from Damian. She danced because for the first time in 2 lives, she was completely free. She spun so fast the bright lights blurred into a solid white line. She poured all her anger, all her joy, and all her fire into the routine. When the final, heavy drumbeat hit, she dropped to one knee, her chest heaving, her arm reaching out toward the dark crowd. The music stopped. For 1 second, the entire theater was totally silent. Then the crowd exploded. People jumped to their feet, screaming and stomping. The sound was deafening. Jamila stayed on the floor, breathing hard, looking out into the dark. She did not care about the judges writing down perfect scores. She did not care about the cameras zooming in on her sweating face. She only cared about the tall figure standing in the shadows by the side curtain. Matt was leaning against the brick wall. Even from far away, she could see the arrogant, possessive smirk on his face. He nodded his head slowly. She had done it. An hour later, Jamila was holding a heavy glass trophy in her hands. The backstage area was chaotic with reporters trying to get interviews, but Matt's guards blocked the hallway completely. Matt walked up to her, took the heavy trophy out of her hands, and handed it to one of his men. Then he grabbed her waist and pulled her into his chest. "We are leaving," Matt said, looking down at her. "The jet is waiting at the airport." "We are going to Paris right now?" Jamila asked, catching her breath. "I have to pack my stuff from the hotel." "My people already packed it. It is in the car." He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the back exit. "We are going to Paris to pack your apartment, and then you are moving into my house." "You are so bossy," she complained, but she let him drag her out the door. The cold wind hit her face, but she felt incredibly warm. "I am used to getting what I want," Matt said as they climbed into the back of the black SUV. The doors slammed shut, cutting off the noise of the city. He pulled her across the leather seat until she was sitting sideways on his lap. He wrapped both arms tightly around her. "And I want you right here." "I am sweaty and gross," she said, trying to push him away, but he held her tight. "I do not care," he murmured, burying his face in her dark hair. "You won the competition. Damian is rotting in a hole. You are safe. Now it is time to pay up." Jamila rested her head on his shoulder. She looked at the expensive city lights flying past the window. She had promised to give him everything if he kept her safe. She thought it would feel like a trap. She thought giving up her control would feel like dying again. But sitting in the dark car, listening to the steady beat of his heart, she did not feel trapped at all. She felt like she had finally found a place to hide where the monsters could never reach her. "You are an absolute jerk," she whispered, tracing the edge of his jaw with her finger. "I know," Matt smiled darkly, catching her hand and kissing her knuckles. "Get used to it."